There are many reasons to put your logbook into an electronic form, but obviously one of the key benefits is the ability to slice and dice your data and do reports and answer questions that are basically impossible or very difficult to do with paper. I'm surprised I haven't done a discussion of this until now, but hey, no time like the present to solve that. So I'm going to dive in. I'm going to show 6 different ways that you can slice and dice your logbook as a whole, a few bits of interesting additional data that you can get on your logbook, and then I'm going to actually show you some analysis that you can do on an individual flight. So let's dive in. And I'm going to start here with totals. Totals are the obvious first place that you're going to go when you want to answer a question about your flying. And you can get to it by clicking here on totals. You can get to it under the logbook tab. You can get to it directly just by going to totals. And you can have it either in a grouped list, like I'm showing it here, or as a flat list. I prefer the group list. I think it's a little bit more legible. And on the mobile apps, it is the default is to show everything grouped. The key groupings here are, the first group here is subtotals by a category and class. So this is a straight line total, a straight line sum of your total flight time field for each flight in a multi-engine airplane, in a single-engine airplane, in a single-engine seaplane, so forth. So this is determined by your flying. I don't actually have, believe it or not, a fixed set of things that can show up in totals. I have some fields I know I want to sum, and then I look at your flying and I total up everything else I can see. Anyhow, for each of these, I'll also show you subtotals. How many landings, how many day and night landings, how many approaches did you do in each of these categories and classes. If you fly aircraft that require a type rating to fly, like Boeing 737, for example, that will also show as, in the case of the 737, it'll show as airplane multi-engine land 737, and it'll show you the subtotal of your multi-engine land flights that are 737. The second group here is times by aircraft features. You can turn this on or off, but this is the aircraft features are things like complex, high performance, technically advanced airplane, tailwheel, turbine, retract. And if you've logged PIC or SIC time, I will show those subtotals as well. Then there's the standard logbook times. These are nighttime, dual received, pilot and command time, the things that are in pretty much every paper standard logbook, no matter whether you're doing military or civilian or commercial or flying. And then finally, I figure out everything else that you might have logged that can be summed up. How many ILS approaches did you do? How many right seat takeoffs did you do? How much solo time do you have? If you've ever had the pleasure of a carrier landing, how many carrier landings did you do? And those will show up here. And then finally, I show you your total number of flights and the total time that you've logged. Now, it's really important to point out that all of these things here that are in blue, you can click on. And that's because, like just about everything else I'm going to show you today, totals is search sensitive. So what it does is it filters the flights to find only the flights that match the search criteria that you specified, and then it runs totals on that. So if I want to see my seaplane flying, for example, I can click on ASES. And wait a second. There we go. And you can see here up, it's saying only flights that match ASES are shown. Here are those matching flights. But if I go on to totals, it will carry that search forward. So the search still applies. You can see there are 17 flights that are in consideration. And the total time for those 17 flights is 21. The PIC time for those flights is just under 14 hours. So I can just look at this and I can see that I have 14 hours of pilot and command time in seaplanes. And of course I can click on this to let that go. I can also further restrict that. If I wanted to restrict that by which aircraft, I could do that as well. So but I'm not gonna do that right now. Now I can also customize totals a little bit. If I want to, in addition to category and class, I can, let me go into profiles, currency totals, I can turn off those subtotals for complex, turbine, or tailwheel, or I can show additional subtotals by model, and there's two ways of doing it by model. If I do totals by model, save my changes, then this is using a very granular definition of model. And so if I click on totals, you can see times by model, and I have a C172M is a distinct model from a C172S, for example. And again, these are all clickable, so same basic search sensitivity and ability to drill in and get those subtotals. I can also do totals grouped by the ICAO designator. So the ICAO designator is what you use when you file a flight plan. And so if I now go back to totals, these are now grouped instead of by C172M and C172S, since all 172s are ICAO C172, you can see that they're grouped that way. So this is right there, very powerful. This helps you answer a lot of those insurance questions about how much time do you have in a particular model of aircraft, or like if you want to know how much pilot and command time do I have in a 182, I can click on that and boom, here I can get the totals. I can see that I have 20.38 hours PIC time in C82Ts. So let's move on to the second, third, and fourth ways that you can slice and dice your data. And I should, by the way, point out that all the stuff I just showed you with totals applies just as well on the mobile apps. The only difference is that it's a little bit backwards, because you go to totals and then you do a search from totals there, and then when you hit the back button, your totals will update to reflect only the matching flights. So the next three slice and dice features are under the training tab, and on the mobile apps, these are actually just hosting the website, so the user interface is exactly the same. The first of these is the 8710 IACRA form. Now, this really only applies to pilots here in the US who are flying under FAA rules, but this is the form that you want to fill out whenever you are going for a check ride with an FAA designated pilot examiner. And there's not a whole lot to say here. It's pretty much mapped to what the form is. The two comments that I will make are, first, it is search sensitive. So if you want to apply a search criteria, trailing 12 months, I don't know why you would do this for the 8710, but you can. Maybe you want to separate your civilian flying from your military flying, for example. Or you've been logging a bunch of Microsoft Flight Simulator time, which doesn't really count, and so you want to make sure you exclude that. You can do that. The other thing I would say is it's important to read the footnotes here about how I'm computing some of these. For example, night PIC. I do not allow you to log night PIC time, and this is deliberate. Search my blog for combination properties and you can see why, but one of the key reasons is that I can compute it. If you have a 1 hour flight and you log an hour of PIC time and a half hour of night time, it's pretty clear that that was a half hour of night PIC. Couldn't have been anything else. And so these are computed, and I just want you to know that. So the second report here is the roll up by model. It's the same thing as just clicking by model here. And what this does is this emulates the airline apps report that a lot of, at least in the US, airlines want to know. And so they're looking for your ATD time, your FTD time, and then your totals by model. Here they do it by ICAO. How much dual time have you got for each one? How much night time have you got for each one? How much total time do you have of all time and in the last 12 months and the last 24 months? And so at a glance, you can get all of that information here. in the roll-up by model. Again, search sensitive. Again, not really sure that you need to be search sensitive, but if there's, again, if you are looking to exclude your military time, or you're looking to exclude your drone time, you can do that, for example. Finally, there's roll-up by time. And what this does is it repeats the basic totals report that I started this video with, except it does it for a bunch of common time ranges. So it starts off with all, which is exactly what you saw under logbook totals. But it also shows what's your time this month, what's your time previous month. I'm recording this in September of 2022, so my previous month is August of 2022. What's my year to date, what's my trailing 12 months, and what's my prior year. And these are a little bit smart. You know, if you're on, if today were September 1st, it would not show this month, it would just show August, because I don't have any time this month, and so it modifies itself a little bit on January 1st as well, to try and be a little smart. You can also get this emailed to you on a weekly basis if you like, under profile preferences. So that's totals is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's go to the fifth way. Now, this is the first of the ways that I don't really have direct support for in the iOS or Android app. You can do it on iOS or Android, but you have to use the website. And that is the analysis functionality. So under logbook, let's go to analysis. Analysis is, it's a little like a pivot table. You pick a value that can be summed, and this is generated dynamically based on what's in your logbook of all the possible things that can be summed. And then you pick a grouping construct. And I have some built-in grouping constructs like year and month, or month of year, as well as additional things that you can group by based on, again, what's in your logbook. And the idea is that first, again, it's search sensitive. So if you have a search applied, that matters. It goes through all of the flights that pass the search criteria. For each one of those flights, it puts them into whatever the grouping bucket is that you've designated. So in the case of year, it'll put each flight into the year of that flight. And then it goes through and computes the total of whatever you've selected for each of those buckets. So here I can see my total flight time by year, and see where it goes up and where it goes down. If I hover over each one, it'll tell me what the year was and what the total is. So I had 107.4 hours of flying in 2004. You can also see on this red line here, you can see a running total. And if you want to, you can also include an average. So here's the average. So my average flying per year is for the flights that match my search criteria. I have no search criteria right now, so right now this is all of my flying, is just under 70 hours a year. So 2021, 2020, 2022 were a little bit below average. Whereas I actually, during the pandemic, managed to do more than average flying when I got 78 hours in. But if I wanted to, for example, see total flight time by day of week, I can do that. And hey, look, I'm pretty clearly a weekend flyer, aren't I? Most of my flying hours are on Sundays and Saturdays. What's pretty cool is that for any of these, you can click here to see the raw data. You can see day of week, and then all of these items here, the things that I can sum, are also repeated here vertically, so I can see it all at once. I can load it into a spreadsheet, or I can eyeball the numbers, and if I want to, I can click on the little download icon here to download it into a spreadsheet. This is just fun stuff, I think, to be able to see the trends. And again, you can, it is search sensitive. So if I only want to see my flying in complex aircraft, now I can see how things change for complex aircraft, and I can see how my total time has been. But again, this is only for complex aircraft. All right, that's 5. I promised you 6. The 6th one is that if you go to download under the logbook tab, you'll see that you can download your flights into a spreadsheet, CSV or Excel. For this purpose, it doesn't really matter which. But I've downloaded I've downloaded my flights. I'm just using my flights as I'll be the guinea pig here, into a spreadsheet. And so here's what the CSV for it looks like. Once it's in a spreadsheet, you can do all of the data analysis that spreadsheets are incredibly powerful for. So one of those, for example, is using pivot tables. And so here I am, I'm in Excel. I'm going to do insert a pivot table using my whole logbook. And if I want to break down my flying by model, I can drag that to the row, and then maybe I even want to do tail number below that. And I want to see how much PIC time do I have in each of these. I can pull that down here. So I can see my total 172 time is 17 hours, but I can see that broken out at a secondary level. This is stuff I can't easily do on the website. Pivot tables are insanely powerful. I'm not going to go into any more detail about them because there are plenty of websites and videos where you can learn more about how to use pivot tables. But suffice it to say, you can do that. You can set up some ifs. You can do computed columns and then add those. You can do all kinds of stuff here and to your heart's content. So that's 6 things that you can do to help slice and dice your data. There are a couple of other things I just want to show at a high level for your logbook as a whole. One of them is visited airports. Here you can see, or in this case you can see my airports, which airports I've been to, what was the date of the first visit, date of the last visit. You can click to view the flights that touched on that airport. If I scroll down here, you can see it all on a map. You can estimate the total distance you've flown if you like. You can see it broken down by country and region, where region in the US is a state, but in, say, Canada, for example, it's a province. You can even download your flying into Google Earth, where you can see it all, including paths, and if you've uploaded telemetry, you can see the actual path that you flew. I do that in Google Earth because the performance is way better there than it is doing it in the website. Or you can download all of this data as a spreadsheet. The other bit of high-level flying stats is under achievements, under the training tab. And of course, you can see all of your flying achievements there, but if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see your flying stats for whatever date range you like. And then you can see some fun things like how many flights did you log? How many days in that time period did you fly? What's your longest streak of consecutive flying days or of consecutive non-flying days? What's the most airports you visited in a single flight? What was your fastest accumulation of 1,000 or 100 hours? You can even view a calendar of your flying. And so all of these green circles are days when I had a flight, and if it says 1, then I had 1 flight on that date, and if it says 2, I had 2 flights on that date, and you can even click to view those flights. And of course, all of these are clickable as well, so you can see which is the date range that got me my fast 1,000 hours. All right, so that's all at the logbook level. But you can also do analysis at an individual flight level. If you go to add a new flight, you'll notice there's a section here, flight telemetry data, where you can upload a file. And if you click learn more, you can see the kinds of stuff that you can upload. So MyFlightbook understands KML, GPX, IGC, NMEA, a few other common formats that are useful for recording your track in space, but it also supports CSV. And in many ways, CSV is more powerful, partly because it's more compact, partly because it's infinitely extensible. You can add new columns to it. And in fact, if you use the mobile apps to record your flight, it's generating a CSV file. Now the mobile apps are just doing the basic time-stamped latitude, longitude, altitude, ground speed, and position error. But what's kind of cool is that with all of the new glass cockpits that have been coming on the market over the past 20 years, 30 years, you can download some pretty rich telemetry information. And so I have a dictionary, a data dictionary with over 100 items from your amperage to your CHTs to your ground speed, your heading, the outside air temperature, and so forth. And if your cockpit can provide that, then you can download it and look at it in your flight. And so the way you do that is you go to look at your flights. This is all web only. And you click the paperclip. The paperclip means that there's telemetry data attached. Actually, I lie when I say that's only on the website. On the mobile apps, if you go into your recent flights and tap on a flight and tap on the little information button next to the route of flight, if there is latitude, longitude information, you can see your path through space. Or you can just map the flight. So if I click on that, here's a flight I did just the other day. And by default here, it's showing altitude, but I could choose ground speed or position error. I can also choose a second axis if I want. So here's ground speed. And that ground speed, in this case, is in knots. The ground speed is the red line here. If I want to, I can convert that. So it does know about converting ground speed has to be to something per hour. The altitude, for example, though, is going to be feet to meters, might be what I want to do. So I can pick my units. And I can, of course, see the map below of my flight. But what's kind of fun is I can also say, where was I when I hit this top speed? And if I click on that, see it says 126.5, boom. If I click on it, I can see on the map here, it dropped a little pin, and I can see where I was when that happened. Excuse me. I can also, if I have some extra data here, which I have a little bit of a time lag, I can optionally crop that data a little bit and apply the crop, and there we go. So now it's just cleaner data, or I can remove that crop. So sometimes if you leave the data recording a little too long, that can be a useful way to get more accurate. The other thing it'll tell you here is what was your minimum altitude, maximum altitude for the flight. If I had the ground speed, it'll show me the minimum and maximum for that. Obviously, that depends on what data you select. So let me show you a different flight here. Here, similarly, I've got a map of the flight. I've got some data. By default, it's showing altitude. But look at this. This data came from the panel, and so in addition to all of that position data, I also have manifold pressure and bus voltage and CHTs and EGTs. And what's interesting here was that on this flight, we were having some issues. So here's CHT4, which is going between 240 and 300. That all looks normal. But look at CHT5. CHT5 is kind of normal here. It's a little bit hot there, but then it just spikes up to 400. Where were we? Maybe we can get some information about what we were doing when I click on that. And I can see that we were on an approach down here by Bremerton when that happened. And I can also say, well, maybe maybe something was happening with the EGTs. Was it? Let's see. What was the EGT like? And you can see, yeah, look at the EGT dropped pretty badly there before settling out. And you can see that this doesn't look like the other CHTs because the other CHTs follow a similar pattern. So again, this is, you can do all sorts of analysis within a flight based on the data that you can collect for the flight. So I hope that has been a useful introduction to the kinds of tools that are on MyFlightbook to slice and dice your data. If there are any tools that you would like to see, please let me know. I'd love to see if I can implement them. Just shoot me a message. Also, take a look at the blog post that I did yesterday. So that would have been September 10th, 2022, where I also discuss a lot of the same topics that I talked about today in a bit more detail. So, happy flying, and I hope this has been helpful.